Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video. CG has given us a lot of news to cover. I'm going to try and put this out in several separate videos to cover everything and increase our turnaround. So if there's a particular topic you want to hear on some of the kits, those are going to be forthcoming. Also, I want to burn through some of the backlog of free-to-play gearing of my roster information that I like to showcase at the end of these videos. So by having more of them, we'll get through more. Topics are, we're going to cover the Kestis Hero's Journey information in this video, the character requirements, what I think that means for the farming order, and the priorities of everything that's going on, how I'm looking at them. The territory battles are going to have some new zones, and then wrapping up with that free-to-play gearing. Now, from the road ahead, we knew a lot of this information in advance. We knew it was going to be a Hero's Journey event. We knew that we were going to get Kestis, a Fallen Order version, and a Survivor version, and Seri Junda and Marin were going to be two of the requirements. With this post, we get the final two with Tarful and Saw, and we get a rough idea of order and timeline. Seri Junda is going to be coming in 2 weeks, with Kestis coming tomorrow, or they say tomorrow, but I think that still means Thursday. We'll see what all that means. So the great news here is that this is going to require Gear 12. So it's a true Hero's Journey event and not that nonsense legendary event that we got for the Grand Inquisitor. This is stuff that I think is great, because what I want is a variety on gear and relic levels when it comes to Grand Arena. When we have requirements like we have with Dr. Aphra or Grand Inquisitor, whereas we have these Relic 5 thresholds, it means when we get to Grand Arena, we're all seeing the same variety of teams, and it gets stale. This way, there's an increased chance that we're going to see all sorts of Kestis squads, or at least unaligned Force user squads, and that it makes things more dynamic, more interesting. And with these requirements, there are some rapid fire quick thoughts that I have on a few of these characters that I want to address, because I feel like this is a good format for it. We'll begin with Marin. It's safe to assume that she will elevate the Night Sisters, but I would also expect that it's an end of an era. The Night Sisters have long been one of my favorite squads and most recommended squads because of their low investment and ability to punch way above their investment level. You can do a lot of risky things with them, like take on Qui-Gon Jinn teams or a number of other relic squads, and they're going to do great up against them. I expect that CG is going to try and force me to relic these characters in this squad for once. And something in her kit is going to create new incentives for relics, because CG is always trying to push us to increase our gear thresholds to keep the game progressing. Tarful is potentially very exciting. He's fun and a deserving character. It's a safe assumption that he's going to be a true Wookiee leader and work for that light side territory battle mission, which I don't even know if it's possible to beat with the current Wookiees. But I like the potential that we could just get a Wookiee faction and shake up Grand Arenas and TBs and Territory Wars a little bit by him being able to pull in a bunch of Wookiees, where Clone Wars Chewie could be viable, where Zelbar could have some utility. Who knows how they approach it, but it's definitely a character that I'm going to be paying attention to more than maybe some of these other characters, just because I think he has a good viability for shifting into his own squads and altering how we're currently playing. Now, Saw is an asterisk for me. He's could be bittersweet or could be great. I don't know yet. We need more information. Obviously, I've been expecting him, and this is a win for the quarterly speculation videos. But his profile has been rising since Rogue One, and I think he's now a character deserving of more than marquee status, which still remains. Nothing precludes this. The Fallen Order version is a little younger. We've seen younger versions in Bad Batch, in Clone Wars, and the older Saw that we see in Andor or in Rogue One could be a conquest or higher status character. That may be forthcoming. We'll have a better idea of this once we see the character design. If we see an old Saw, I think I might be a little disappointed, but I expect that we're going to get a younger one like in the image here. Now, along with all this information, CG has also given us the tier breakdown. If you're concerned about spoilers for events, you might want to skip ahead with the timestamps down below. I don't consider this really a spoiler. I think this is going to be important information for how we plan and strategize for this event. So what we know is how these characters are going to be divided up between each of the tiers. This will impact, or has the potential to impact, the farming order for this event, because these events typically run about a week. So traditionally with the hero's journey, even if you don't have all of the characters ready for the event, you can still access the early tiers. So that will affect our farming potentially. This isn't always true. There are some events where CG requires you to have everything ready in order to even access the early tiers. I'm hoping in this case that goes back to the older standards. Now, with how these tiers are broken up, this will affect our farming order. So that means we're going to go after Cal, then Saw and Tarful, then Marin, then Seri Junda. So the character who is actually becoming the second available character for this event, we can potentially put off the farm until last. Or while we are waiting for Saw and Tarful, we can get a head start. But once we get Saw and Tarful farmable, we'll ease off on those refreshes, shifting the refresh focus to Saw and Tarful, maybe doing 2 refreshes there, and shifting down to 1 or 0 refreshes on Seri Junda. That way we can make sure that we are getting these farms done in a way that allows us to access as much of an event as possible, even if we're not fully ready. And with the cadence of releases looking like these are going to be stacked up on top of each other, that means we're probably going to be doing 4 to 5 farms at a single time. Keep that in mind for how you are allocating the refreshes. This has happened in the past with Bad Batch, Inquisitors, and Mando, where those characters came out so quickly. And if you're a player like me staying on top of those farms, you have to think through how you are going to want to be using those refreshes. So that covers the farming priorities, but I also want to talk about these larger character project priorities, where we have Grand Inquisitor, we have Jabba, Dr. Aphra, the potential for a new GL on the horizon, probably going to be announced around May the 4th. We need to think about how we want to split them up, and really this is a larger discussion of one of the things that I say here is go to where the ball is going, don't chase where the ball is. This is something that I've talked about in the past with Grand Inquisitor. Nobody was happy with the Inquisitors. They didn't like the faction. People felt like they could skip them. I stayed on top of it, went after those farms, and even though I was ready way in advance, I was ready in September, he didn't get this second iteration of that event, didn't come back until December. I was in a position to capitalize on that and make sure I could be helping out the guild, making it so that we could make as much progress as possible, because we don't know when these events are going to come back. Maybe the Kestis journey comes back on that older 3-month cadence that we've seen in the past. Maybe it could be longer, and with these time-sensitive events, you want to do what it takes to be ready for them. Which means maybe you deprioritize Aphra a little bit. Maybe you deprioritize Jabba a little bit. And by all means, finish your current projects. Don't divert in order to go after someone like Kestis. But it means that maybe the next project does become Kestis. Because Grand Inquisitor, we're about to hit a year on that event. So the time-sensitive nature of that event is no longer going to be an issue pretty soon. And then we're shifting into this phase where Kestis, you might only have a couple windows to access him. And with the announcements with these territory battles, I think it would be prudent to make sure your roster is in a position to take advantage. Because with this new event, we're getting new locations, and along with it, new territory battle zones. But more specifically, we're getting our first bonus zone which will require a gateway planet to access. And we don't entirely know what any of this means. We get some clues here, and reading the tea leaves, I think we are going to want to be paying attention to these bonus zones in the future, because for the most part it's going to be like other nodes, but they do say it has other rewards, and the level of vagueness they've placed here says to me there is a chance that it could be shards. And that is enough of an incentive for me to want to prioritize being able to help out your guild with this kind of event, because it's the type of thing that we're going to see pretty soon. I think by the end of this month, or after this current territory battle, Riva is going to be unlocked. And then we are going to see another faction being a major Grand Arena threat. Now, I don't think that's going to happen immediately with this journey. I think just like we saw with the Inquisitors, where it took nearly a year before we saw the full potential of the Inquisitors get unfolded. I think it's going to be a similar type of thing here, where after the first iteration of the journey event and a couple iterations of the Braca and Zepho appearances in territory battles, then CG will start introducing new things in that territory battle. And if it turns out to be shards, I want to be ready. Because one of the things that I see as I do things like roster reviews is the over-prioritization of older characters because they're accelerated farms. Now, you absolutely should do that while you are working on the big projects and the big squads. But if you have a number of the big pieces in place, filling out that depth with older characters doesn't always have big returns, and I always have a bias towards newer characters and new kits. If you have the crystal income for it, it only takes about a month and a half to do a new character single shard farm. It's not that egregious if you can afford the 2 refreshes. For more veteran players, you want to put your roster in a position where it can be flexible and anticipate the game and not playing catch up whenever CG does things. So that's what I'm advocating here and looking for. And it's one of those major strategies that as a free-to-play player has allowed me to stay a little bit ahead of against a lot of my competition, a lot of whom are at least partial spenders. And we wrap up with the gearing of my roster from January 9th. The big thing here is I was working through Ben Solo, getting him ready for territory battles and platoons to help out the guild there, and also just wanting to make him more of a threat. I've been using him more and more in my roster. I really like how he works with JTR and R2. That's something if you watch the Grand Arena videos, you'll see me use that team pretty frequently. And he needs the Omicron. That's something that I'll be adding to my play soon. But the unique functionality of just preventing his death or JTR's death until you hit some health thresholds does a lot to help JTR punch up and make her a much more viable squad in the current period of the game. You can see me working on these requirements and how quickly I was going through some of these guys because they became farmable, I think, in some point in December, and I'm already at 5 stars in the start of January, and I'm already using Dr. Afra now for several weeks in Grand Arena. So it's like that month and a half or so threshold. Now I'm adding the Zeta on Stormtrooper Han, because now I have Sana at a position where I want to do more testing with Sana along with Han. Gear 12 has been fine. He's a character I'd like to get to relics, but I'm not going to prioritize his relic over a number of other characters just because they're able to beat Mon Mothma squads at the stage that I have them at without relics on him, and they're not really going to punch up too much more than that. And yet another like Mon Mothma counter or that level of a counter is not a huge priority for me. There's plenty of teams that can do those kinds of things. Although the current Datacron is a little interesting. Profundity, you see me make the 6-star promotion, did that at the end of January, but the 6 to 7-star promotion, that's one I tend to take my time on. It's not affecting my ability to climb to first in my fleet arena shard, so without that impact, I'm just taking my time. That way I can retain some crystals for other priorities. The 6 stars more than adequate for everything that I am using it for. The other thing you can see in this screen is all of the Hut Cartel are in place. This was prior to me unlocking Jabba, but I was, from a shard and farming standpoint, I was completely ready. I was not ready with all of the gear. I tend to throw in all the gear at once because I like to showcase in Grand Arenas Gear 11 characters. So until I was ready to take those steps up for testing purposes, holding back some of the gear until I had all of the gear. The Kestis video is going to come out fairly soon after you're watching this one. I'm going to get to work on it right now. The Sarajunda video will be a separate one that I'll be releasing in another day or so. I'd like to get to a point where we can have at least a couple non-Grand Arena videos coming out each week. So that one will give a little bit of buffer. Maybe we'll stagger it along with the Grand Arena videos so that there is something new in your feeds. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone, and be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.